Welcome back to another fantastic episode of I'm going to Talk, You're going to Listen. This is probably one of the. I always say this and it ends up never being the case, but this is probably the last podcast I'm going to do for a while. I think after this one, I'll have maybe finally said everything that needs to be said for a while. As of this well, by the time you're hearing this, there'll be like 2 days left to the election or something. And I have been prepping as much as I can prep and getting mentally and physically ready and getting all the preps ready and trying to help everyone else get ready. And um, I think that no matter what happens, there's just going to be craziness. Um, I think that what people are kind of wondering, I think, is like exactly when the craziness is going to start. Um, the Pacific Northwest is deploying National Guard on Monday, and to be clear, I don't think that that's an what's the word overreaction. I don't think that's an overreaction. I think that they probably should be deploying the National Guard every single election. If they had done it back in January 6th, a bunch of boomers wouldn't have been able to walk into the Capitol. Um, Obviously, I think it depends on what their mission is. But having them activated when you know civil unrest is coming is always a good idea. I think that's been the biggest problem. Well, pretty much 100% of the time, whether it's like Baltimore, Kelowna, or January 6th, or Chaz, just like the million different times that you need National Guard, you have to have them activated, and it takes like 3 days. I've been talking about this and writing about this forever. So I think I think it's good. I don't think people should be scared about the National Guard being deployed, being activated. I think the thing to try to look for is like why you're being told, that they're being activated, and I think the problem is it's kind of like a word salad, you know. So we'll go over that really quick. See, kind of the problem is, so there's going to be basically 4 days here that apparently, like, it's the whole Pacific Northwest, is what I'm reading. Um, they kind of say two reasons at the same time, and that makes it like very squishy. And so that's what would make people nervous. If you're going to have them on standby to ensure public safety and respond to potential civil unrest across the state, that would make sense. But then also they say it's in response to Homeland saying that there's threats to election infrastructure, which that could easily mean, voting booths, which has absolutely already happened. Um, so there could also be, threats to, uh, you know, electrical infrastructure and, internet. There could be threats to anything, and they're, not always necessarily going to tell us. So it's easy to misread, election infrastructure as electrical infrastructure because that's what we're used to seeing. I think, was it last winter or the winter before, like our electrical infrastructure got attacked across the U.S., but the Pacific Northwest got some of the worst of it. Whether that's um, sleeper cells or of non-government actors, non-state actors, or homegrown or whatever. I think I think these days a good governor, you know, keeps their National Guard ready and trained and well supported and ready to go, because you never know. I don't think you send them abroad. I think that's insane. they keep sending our National Guard over to the other side of the planet. And I think these are the exact kind of things you need them for. So that's going to segue to our sponsor. Just kidding. I think my belief is that if K Bone wins, the pro Hamas supporters are going to go absolutely nuts. And to be clear, they've been going absolutely nuts for a year, so it's not like I'm exactly prophesizing some major, what's the word, some major revelation. I think they're already poised to do that. They've been testing the waters. The pro-Palestine protesters have been 100% getting away with everything that they have been doing scot-free for the last year, including the college stuff, including freeway shutdowns, including shutting down any business with ties to military contracts, and a lot of three letter buildings. Um, I don't think the First Amendment protects you against intimidating the hell out of everybody, and that's tantamount to tyranny, as far as I'm concerned. Um, and I think if you think about it, who does that remind you of? It reminds you of unions. Um, Unions have the right to protest. I don't think they have a right to do a lot of the absolutely psychotic things that they do. And if you're pro Palestine, which just gives me a headache thinking about just the logical implications of that, since the history of Palestine isn't about Palestinians. Anyway, that's just geopolitical stuff, just gives me a headache. Like, how long do you think the Palestinians have been living in Palestine that those aren't really Palestinians because they're not really from Palestine, but whatever. How come the other countries won't take Palestine back? Where do those people come from? But you can't. You'll get beat up if you ask those questions, so you can't. But people should be allowed to go have their protests, just not be psychos about it. Um, so, but since one side is notoriously militant over their protests, I think getting the National Guard ready is great. I was, to be honest, I was happy. I'm happy about it. Um, I don't think anyone in Seattle wants another Chaz. I don't think anyone in Portland wants another 100-day purge. However, you have to be able to arm and train your National Guard. However, with that whole DoD thing, they could use like live fire. And I thought about that, and I'm like, you can allow them to use live fire till the cows come home, but I don't think that 99.999% of like law enforcement ever use live fire unless either they're nuts or they have no other choice, or their training just sucks ass. So I think, yeah, exactly. So I think that if I'm putting, we're in an alternate reality, okay? So all of a sudden I'm a police officer. Um, I don't think this DoD thing makes them, like 007, where they can run around like John Wick and be like, now, 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 and then it'd be like The Purge. Like, I don't think I haven't read it, but at least like morally, I haven't seen any of like leaked footage of them getting the pep talk saying like, okay, it's time to kick the tires and light the fires. Like, so I'm, again, a lot of this is just speculation and what I've seen. I don't think law enforcement is going to exercise their God-given rights to lethal self-defense, no matter if it's how else they have it, unless their lives are in danger. And so what this might do, though, is they might take, and same thing with National Guard, I think they might take a way more aggressive posture, aggressively defensive posture. So what might this look like? The cops might be running around with ARs, um, and or M4s. Although I still don't know how many of the cops have M4s. Maybe if they're SWAT, I don't know. But I suspect, especially in Piss Town, those riot shields might go away really quick and just be replaced by cops running around with them. AR-15s or tricked out AR-15s or like M4s. And the same thing with National Guard. The National, I don't even know if they have M4s anymore, but I'm sure they can find some somewhere. I mean, if they've got they've had about 3 days to mobilize, which is good. Three days is what they need. They have time to have somebody go find some M4s for them. So what's that mean if the lefty loos decide to march up to them? There might be like a restrained, they may show restraint, but it isn't going to be like Kelowna where you've got a kid in green rolling around turning the bad guys into hamburger while the law enforcement just stand or while the National Guard just stand there. I imagine if it went like full blown like Baltimore, like full blown like Kelowna and a couple of other places, Chaz, like they might go in and be like, move or you're getting moved, which usually isn't the posture of the National Guard and the police. They usually reserve that for U.S. Marshals, which you do not fuck with the U.S. Marshals, and everybody knows that. And so, 4 years ago, how they kind of sort of got around that is they deputized a lot of local and state as federal, which allows them to change their posture somewhat, and it changes a couple of administrative things that they're allowed to do, like not have their names on their rigs anymore and have numbers and have those numbers go to a database that conveniently disappears as soon as the protest is over. And if those things scare you, they should. However, if you're staying away from the activity, uh, you would never even know about that. That's only for the people that want to FO downtown. And uh, if you see U.S. Marshals, I recommend staying way the hell away. They have significantly more training than local and state by far. In my opinion, they outtrain the National Guard by far. They are absolute badasses. They're extremely professional and they're very high speed. Do not fuck with them. They will look different than everybody else. They will look different than state and local and SWAT and everything. Um, and the lefty loos found out the hard way. In 2020, they tried to fight. They tried to fight it out with the U.S. Marshals, and that was absolutely, absolutely idiotic. They had like I don't know 1,000 people, and they couldn't budge the U.S. Marshals. So another thing, federal can use different non-lethals than the city. And I don't know about the state, but definitely the city. So they could be rolling around with air pepper burst balls or any other kind of nasty things that we don't even know about. Um, they could all have 10 different kinds of grenades on them to give you the sauce, all kinds of the sauce. So yeah, but they wear different camo, and their posture is different. And National Guard. Here's the question though: is like I don't know necessarily what National Guard's going to look like. Usually, like they are probably all going to be running around wearing digital ACUs because that's all they've got, which is that funny digital camo pattern that everybody loves to hate. They're going to be really obvious. I still think though that oh yeah. So you might get to the point. I think that the National Guard is only going to be used for one of two things. Either the bad guys start messing with the electrical grid, and then you'll need the National Guard to start guarding the electrical infrastructure, or they're going to use the National Guard to clear out the freeways if the lefty loos decide to block the freeways. So I can't emphasize this enough. You need to trip check. If you're going to be going out the 5th, if you're going to be going out the 6th, you need to trip check because the lefty loos are amazing at shutting down freeways. And those are things that the National Guard would be really good at getting rid of because most of the state patrol left or got fired during the Rona, and State Patrol has been a fraction of its former strength ever since. Sheriffs usually won't touch the freeways with a 10-foot pole. Local won't touch the freeways at all. The best that they will do is take care of the on-ramps and off-ramps. So it's going to be National Guard, State Patrol, and if there's any state police. But Washington and Oregon have never had a lot of state police at all. So that's a whole deal. So I think their job's going to be to keep the freeways clear. However, if things get really bad, there will be checkpoints going in and out of the city. Now, you might go, that's unconstitutional. They have those checkpoints set up coming in and out of the city, usually just going into the city, because they are trying to stop the lefty-loos from flooding in to tear the place apart. How long that will last? This says 4 days. It could last weeks or months, and those roadblocks are not going to buy you a lot of time to get out of there, because once this sets in, you kind of have to wait for daytime, like morning, 6, 7, 8 a.m. Gather your family, gather your things, and trip check and get the heck out. And don't come back until you're sure everything's fine. What I've been reading on the Twitters is that everybody is getting out of Seattle. Just the general Seattle area. If there was ever something to get out of Seattle or Portland for, this would be it. I know Seattle and Portland have been boarding up their windows with plywood for days now. I'm sure the lefty-loos are going to stick it out because they're just in massive denial. But I think, like I've said before, most of them did not, none of them voted for K-Bone to be in the primary because she wasn't in it. They voted for Sleepy Joe based on how he used to be and the thought of what he used to be. That's what they voted for. K-Bone was never voted in, and I think they are going to be very upset at their own side when she loses. And so I don't know how much their brains are going to reconcile the protests going on, if that makes sense. They might join them, or they might just try to leave, or they might just try to, sleep it out and then go the next morning. I think it depends if they see any National Guard or police or anything or not. But here's what you got to ask yourself. Let's pretend the National Guard and the police and everybody somehow miraculously prevent the city from being destroyed. Here's the problem. They will immediately go into the suburbs, and if you think that they can't wage a soft CW in the suburbs, you are wrong. They will fight it out in the suburbs all night. The lefty-loos will. Just like there's street lockdowns in the suburban areas all night and the urban areas. So all it does is push the protesters into the suburban areas where all the lefty loos are pouting in their Kool-Aid that the person that they didn't even vote for just lost. I still stand by, though, what I said last time, which I think a lot of the traditional leftists are going to be very, very happy, secretly happy that Orange Man won. I think they are secretly going to be relieved. Now, if they work for a three-letter agency and think the three-letter agencies are going to get gutted, then they might not be happy. But anyone involved with the stock market, like, they're going to be making money off this. They know jobs are coming back. They figure that house prices and stuff. They know that K-Bone has no plan. Me and you all, went through the top 4 results of what Kamal's plans are, and 80% of it's nonsense. And there was a couple of really interesting things in there, but there was so much nonsense that I don't even remember any of it now. And I read stuff and I heard stuff that basically, like, if you're wondering why I think she's gonna lose bigly, she's gonna lose and the other guy's gonna win, is because the left is banking their entire political whatever this is on abortion. The number one thing is abortion, and they are trying. I read all these like ludicrous, these ludicrous blue wave posts. It is all cat ladies, and they all think they're gonna win. All the women think they're gonna win because they think a smart woman is gonna vote for K-Bone. I got bad news for you. First of all, women are women's own worst enemy. First of all. Second of all, they hate being told what to do, no matter how wrong they are. They never apologize for anything, and they are fiercely independent. And they telling them to vote for K-Bone is like akin to telling them to like calm down. It's just not gonna work. Like, women are also mothers who don't like their children being indoctrinated at schools. So women are also mothers. Their wives, their daughters, their sisters. Their women aren't just this item that is a big monolith that the left can try to like bully into voting their way. And I think the biggest irony of it all is, they had their stupid little ad where it's like, you don't have to tell him who you're voting for. Tee hee hee. Well, I think, again, I brought that up last time. I think their own manipulative side doesn't realize that they will also lie to each other. So, they could go post the blue wave and go, tee hee hee, blue wave, tee hee hee. But that's the kind of like backstabbing bitches that they are. They would do that to each other. They'll all lie to each other and then go do whatever it is that they're gonna do. So, like I said, their daughters, their mothers, their wives, they're just so many different things, and some of them have also wives of their own because they're gals married to the gals. I don't believe that they are going to automatically flock to K-Bone because they see their schools indoctrinating their children. They see their daughters not having women's only spaces in locker rooms and bathrooms like they should. They see the Second Amendment, which allows them to train and defend themselves however they see fit. They see that being any semblance of autonomy of them being able to defend themselves in any situation is being removed. I've talked about this before. Colleges, which is probably one of the most dangerous places for young gals, they're not allowed to defend themselves in colleges, which is just insane to me. One of maybe a million reasons why colleges just need to go to sleep, unless it's for a degree that is actually legitimately important to have. So the ladies, they see all this stuff. Again, like I've said before, they see the grocery bill. Okay, women look at grocery bills. They sit there and they stress about money. They they're very conscious as to how much their man makes, or woman in some cases, if you know what I mean. They are very, or maybe they're an older gal. Maybe they're getting up there and they know how much they make in Medicare and Medicaid and social social security, blah 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 blah. Like, they are extremely consciously aware of this. And I guess if I only had one complaint about all of the debate, not the debates, people, like actual legitimate discourse, if I had like a complaint in air quotes, I would like an elderly person that's a conservative that is on fixed income social security. I would like a conservative to explain to the lefty loos how they're making it and why they're not afraid. Um, that being said, I still think if you're on Social Security, you're going to get screwed. And so I don't pretend to understand that because I'm not a boomer that's on Social Security and believe that, the pension thing and 401k and all that nonsense. But, oh my head. But there's a lot of people out there that are. And so I would be interested, if you're a boomer, leave your comment down below on why you're not worried about Orange Man getting rid of Social Security and Medicare and Medicaid, blah, blah, blah. Obviously, he's not. But what I'm saying is, what's your what's your counter to that? Does that make sense? Like, how would you counter that? Because I think the elderly, they have some valid concerns because they sat there and they worked their whole life and they believed that they were going to be taken care of, which is an idiotic idea, but that's what they were promised. I don't know why they would ever believe that insanity, but a lot of them did, and now they continue to vote as if their very life depends on it because they have become completely dependent on federal for Social Security. My second question is why is the left still running its platform on saying that the conservatives are going to bring back pre-existing conditions? That is the stupidest thing I've ever heard. I have not heard any human being alive that is a normal human being on any side that is green or blue or purple or cat people saying that they would ever want pre-existing conditions to come back. That was insanity. That was so stupid. I've worked for medical insurance twice. I have been a victim of that fraud myself, a victim of how doctors medical bill things, and it's there is no conservative that wants pre-existing conditions to come back. Now, I bet you there are insurance companies that want it to come back because insurance is going to be insolvent. Vehicle insurance and medical insurance and flood insurance and fire insurance and riot and every other kind of insurance on the planet. are all going to go broke. So maybe pre-existing conditions would be a way for them to not go broke, but that would just be one of another 10 billion reasons why they can just deny everybody. Uh, um, do not, if you have to rely on insurance, there's a good chance you've already lost, because it is effectively a lottery at this point. And I don't know anyone on Medicare or Medicaid that's actually being taken care of properly. Um, and I've heard that the VA stuff is getting better from some people, but other people have heard that the VA stuff is getting worse. So I don't, maybe it depends on where you are, um, for that. But I'm just curious, like if the left is primarily, if it is hinging, this is going to sound way more condescending than I really mean it to be, but it's almost like the left has pinned its entire hope for the election on women turning out to vote for K-Bone, almost exclusively on abortion. I do not believe that the population that they believe exists in that Venn diagram is actually very big at all. Uh, Furthermore, hence, moreover, too, uh, I don't think that whole guys for K Bone thing. Yeah, there are a bunch of pansy cuck little bitches out there, um, but I don't think they're geographically diverse enough for it to even statistically be a blip outside of the main cities that are already predominantly going to vote for K-Bone anyway. Just on the principle that it's, you know, uh, blue no matter who. Is that what it says? Blue no matter who. Um, but I think even a lot of those blue no matter who people are going to look at their grocery bill, or like, okay, so full disclosure, mid one of my earlier rants, um, my audio got cut off. So in one of my earlier rants, I was talking about gals. Gals are moms. Um, they have daughters. They want daughters to be able to defend themselves and so on. Part of that is there's a lot of gals that want their moms and they want their kids to be able to have their own house someday. Now, I personally believe that you're better off if your parents' house is big enough, you're better off all staying there and trying to fortify it and have gardens and stuff and consolidate until things can blow over. But still, ever if there was ever going to be a generation on the whole planet, ever in all of time combined, that all of a sudden all the little shitters suddenly turned conservative, it would be for this election. And there's two reasons for that. Number one is they are so beyond black-pilled right now that they believe their lives are effectively over before they even began, and that they have no hope for anything. And so they could see Orange Man as like, oh, he's the one of these two that has a plan. And I think I remember 4 years ago it not being that bad. So let's do that again and see if it works. And then number two, kids are already very rebellious little bastards. And it when you have all these, these bootlicking leftist, bands that are supposed to be, punk in spirit, and they're all just a bunch of bootlicking lefty. You wonder if they were on somebody's island or if they're in somebody's videos somewhere, and and the list is a mile long. They all come out for K-Bone. Counterculture is going to swing to the other side, and they're going to be like, "Oh, those are the bootlickers. Huh? That must be the establishment." And they're going to go against the grain, and they're going to vote overwhelmingly for Orange Man. So I think you have got you have got the perfect storm of almost every single geographic except for some of the boomers and some of the crazy cat ladies. Um, which even again, I think a lot of the boomers would wanted Sleepy Joe. I don't think they want K-Bone. Um, However, this is where I think Republicans have done an overwhelmingly bad job at explaining how they plan on taking care of our elderly citizens. And to be clear, if somebody approached me on the street and they're like, "Oh yeah, what's Orange Man gonna do for boomers?" I'm gonna be like, "Doug, I have no idea. Not completely crash the United States, I guess, for starters, and keep us out of wars, and then I guess try to figure it out from there." So they haven't done a great job at that. I think, and I guess therein lies the problem. Like, or if you wanted to attack the policies and stances of Republicans, um, you would. I think there's plenty there to go after. There's plenty of dumb shit that they've done, and there's plenty of like, let's get back to like single issue, votes and get rid of these crazy omnibuses where you like need a damn AI to synthesize like these bills that are going through and things, all that bullshit where it's like, all right, you've got 1 hour to read through this 1 billion page omnibus. Like, there's a lot of those things that like would all be very valid concerns. Uh, but that's not what the left goes over. That's not what the debates are. Instead, K Bone goads Orange Man into talking about uh, you know, crowd sizes. Again, to be clear, K Bone has to bus everybody around. It's the same people at every one, and a good chunk of the people at her rallies are people protesting against her because of Palestine. So I understand. I understand why it's like such easy bait to take when she starts talking about her crowd sizes. I think it's pretty funny, but those debates, like the moderators, none of the moderators did the United States like a service. Not only did they overwhelmingly support K-Bone and Sleepy Joe before that, but they don't ask really good questions. Do we need to hear about the border 500 more times? And locally, it's not any better. It's like, holy shit, like one of those people wants to, secure the border and one of those people doesn't. So stop acting like there's a middle area here. If you don't come out and say, I want to secure the border, you do not want to secure the border. It should be here's how it would go if I was the moderator. Hello, person A. Do you want to secure the border? Yes or no? Do you want to secure the border? Yes or no? Do you want to secure the border? Yes or no? Do you want to secure the border? Okay, then I'm guessing that is a no. Next question. Or you go to the other person. Do you want to secure the border? Yes. Okay, fantastic. Like, that's it. That's it. Like, and I would just go that way for everything. So I would because people don't need to know any more than that. Like, do you want to get drugs off city streets? Yes or no? It's a yes or no question. Do you want to get homeless off the streets? Yes or no? And then you can say, okay, what's your plan? And to their credit, for Portland's local elections, they did kind of do that. But I think, oh man, they had like 7 people going or something, and I think it should have been a little bit more longer form content. Plus, those poor people had to do ranked choice, and it's just like ranked choice is like so weaponized. And then their ballots got attacked anyway. Their ballot drop boxes got attacked anyway, and it's just that's a mess. But I think the moderators in Portland probably had at least what I would say is like the most efficient idea. But then unfortunately what happened was when it made it to the YouTube, they cut it down a lot for time. They edited it way down. And I think if it was up to me, what I would do is I would load the whole stinking thing onto YouTube in one giant long unedited video, and then I would chapter it, and then I would break every single one of those chapters up into their own individual video, so it would be easy to reference. Because I don't think a good election and good candidates, I don't believe they need to be meddled with, or whatever the word is I'm trying to think of. Like, they don't need to be, what's the word I'm trying to think of? You don't have to meddle with those elections. Like, just make them accurate. Make everybody's stances accurate. Like, is that too hard? Is it too hard to just ask somebody a question, get the answer to the question, and then stamp it so everybody knows this is the person's answer to the question, and they can't be bothered to do that, and it's just like it doesn't give people a fair. I don't want to say like a fair election. It doesn't give people. I don't even know. I don't even know what to call it. It's bullshit. It's bullshit is what it is. Um, it's not election interference. I would say it's like election process malpractice or something. It's just like it's just fucking the election up is what it is. You can't just like figure out what somebody's stance on something is. You should always be able to do that. You should be able to go, what does this person think about Second Amendment? What's this person think about the border? What's this person think about Social Security? And they should have to give you real, concise, specific answers, not political mumbo jumbo. And so I want to take you aside for a second and understand corpo mumbo jumbo. I used to think that saying things with a lot of words made you sound really smart. Then I realized, after strongly considering learning how to just word salad the shit out of things, I realized that A, there isn't enough time for that. They're just running out the clock. And B, sometimes they really do know what they're talking about. They're just incredibly insecure, or they're scared of somebody else on the call or the meeting or whatever. Um, or that's just how they think they have to talk to like corporate warlords and executives. I think executives level, which includes both in the private and public sector, I think they have learned culturally to not trust anybody that doesn't talk in giant circles, or doesn't just blather corpo blather is what I'll call it, where they say a lot without really saying anything. Um, I hope it doesn't feel like I do that. I think there's a couple different ways that people do it. I think some people do it by interjecting a story every single chance they get. It drives me insane because it makes shit take way too long. I think sometimes stories add context. It just depends on how much time you have. Sometimes the story can be like an example, but like sometimes people just want the answer to a question. If I'm on a project and somebody's like, well, why don't you think this is going to work? I don't go, well, I was on this one project. And I was like, oh, fuck, here we go again. So, um, yeah. So I think one day I kind of just realized that I I didn't need to artificially add tons of more words that didn't need to be there, because realistically, like, that's what you have to do, instead of saying, you know, oh, how's your cat doing? My cat's doing fine. Thanks for asking. They go, well, relatively to how most cats are doing on a scale of 1 to 10. If I had to say how well my cat was doing right now, I think I would have to say that my cat's doing a little bit better than average if you take into account the fact that things have been really tough for my cat lately because of reasons out of my cat's control. It's like, holy fuck, dude. And I think that's the problem. And I think that's a huge problem. It just wastes everybody's time and it's like fucking stupid. I think you I think you lose everybody below you in the corpo ladder because they think you're a pretentious fuck. The people on your own level are like, "Oh, you're such a ass kissing piece of shit." To the one person above you that might go, "Oh, oh, oh, wow, oh, girl, that was such a glorious word salad. My muffin is also doing better than they normally could have been doing if they hadn't have otherwise been doing the fact that, hence, moreover, tooth foreseeth, they were uh, born in a middle class kitty cat family." It's just like, holy fuck, please stop. The problem is, like, in Corpoville, you might be on a call with like 15 fucking people and you might have to go around the room on like 15 things and you realize, oh shit, this is gonna take 5 fucking hours. Uh, when realistically, if you had a good moderator, you could get through the whole thing like 15 seconds, go, 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 and then someone who can write notes really fast, like a little matrix or something. Like, and then if you ever have like a valid point, you hear one, oh, here we go. Here we go again. And it's like, you all got to just jibber jabber the dumbest shit on the fucking planet. I have a valid concern that I actually did my homework on with real research, and I have real points that I have to make, and I have, counterpoints in case any of it comes up. Like, I have proved this all out, and I am pretty sure that I'm correct, and I would really like you all to tell me if you don't think I'm right. And they're like, ugh, well, I just don't think, blah, 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 blah. And you're like, okay, so I just don't think that. It gets ridiculous. You realize you're working with a bunch of idiots who can blather all day long, but they can't actually listen to, absorb, or react to any of the points that you make. You realize that you're working with massive, massive, like low education, low, just low IQ, low, like literally low IQ people. Or they have so many layers in place uh, that you'll never be able to carve through it and figure out who they really are in any length of time. You'd have to have a 3-hour conversation with them in hope that they don't have a meltdown. I was an auditor for a long time. I know this to be an absolute fact. Like, there are a lot of people that cannot handle being broken down like that because they can't handle being vulnerable. Because deep down they are piss scared and pray to God that nobody figures out who they really are. Especially if they hawk to it their way up to the top. They are scared to death of that being, the reason that they got to where they are because they know they're dumb as shit. But I also know gals who are insanely smart, very, very quick witted. Yeah, they're total ice queens. Uh, but that posture that they have of like being that cold bitch, like that posture. I'm struggling to think of like the right word right now. That air, that aura makes them a badass, especially if they're smart enough to like admit when other people have good ideas, and they can moderate and they can shut down all the stupid people. And especially if they're like a woman, then there you've got the queen bee that can get all the other women to shut the fuck up if they don't have something valid to say. You know, you've got the queen bee, and it's like sometimes, you know. I don't want this to be a whole podcast of me just like shitting on women, because that's not it at all. But you end up with two different types in management. Typically, the one that will make stupid fucking decisions and then stay with them, no matter how much everybody can prove how stupid of an idea it is. And then you have the ones that'll make a really good idea and stick with it, and then everybody just gets behind them and pushes, and it's like it's not the best way and there's multiple ways, but let's get behind it and let's just make it happen. And you end up not doing amazing, but you end up doing really well. And I think, but they can they can diplomatically explain to you why they want to do what they want to do, or they can figure out how to diplomatically go your route without feeling like they're being marginalized. And I've worked with a lot of both, and it's mind blowing. It's mind blowing to me, how why it's mind blowing to me why we can't have why the first woman president can't be someone who is a gal who is well spoken and sure of herself. Like, corporate is full of them. HR is full of them. Gals that really know their shit, and they study. They can quote everything inside and out, and they know how to apply it. Uh, and they're diplomatic. They can explain why to go there, why we're going that route. They can be really good managers, and they still have like the empathy, which is nice. They'll listen to your dumb shit and and not be offended by it, and not. I have just said some dumb shit in front of some corpo queens, some really dumb shit, and they look at me and I'm like, oh, I just said dumb shit, didn't I? I'm like, my bad. Um, this is like, why is and I guess maybe that's not. Maybe they just don't fail their way up the corporate ladder like low IQ does. It's scary. I mean, the only one I could think of was that theoretically would have been what the CEO of HP or whatever. I think, if I remember right, didn't she run HP into the ground? It's her face. Otherwise, you've got like Liz Warren, and I too am a fellow human that drinks beers in my kitchen with my husband in my human kitchen. Oh, and then you got what, like Hill Dog, who could she had a commanding presence, but she she couldn't like react. I feel like she couldn't react fast enough when things were changing, and she didn't realize it. Um, I just don't see, although I don't see it on the well. But see, then you got Tulsi Gabbard, who I'm not the biggest fan of, because in my opinion she's not fully pro 2A, but you could say Tulsi Gabbard, and it's like, yeah, Tulsi Gabbard's coming over to the conservative side. Um, there's probably way more, but I bet you a lot of them are on the state level. But then you go down to like the county, and man, there's just you've got some really bright, sharp gals, but you realize that the committee is being led by another, HOA Karen, committee Karen, crazy cat lady that won't step down, that is just completely overwhelmed, but won't admit it, and just clings to power and just runs everything into the ground. And it's like, nobody tells them, like, you do not know what you're doing. Just quietly go off into the sunset and go tend to your cats. But they want power so bad. They want to boss people around so bad. They want the money and the power, but they don't want to get the education or do the work. They have no idea what they're doing, and they are just too piss scared. How do I know this? I run into them all the time, and I try to mentor them, and I try to help them, and they hire me to do their corpo work and help them do their corpo stuff. And then you know what they do? They just argue with me, and then they steal my work and present my work as their work. Guys do this too. Guys have done this to me too, not just gals, because they're all just like insecure idiots, and they just don't. It's not universally a gal thing. Guys do it too. You end up with just lots of insecure guys that are totally. It's the only difference is that guys, when they don't know what the fuck they're doing, they double down and turn it into a giant dick measuring contest. And it's like, no, we don't need to bro down. I already know you're wrong and stupid. It's like I don't need to fight you. I already know I'm right. So you're the one that's wrong, and you're the one that's insecure, and you're the one that wants to fight about it. I gain nothing. So that's happened to me before. I caught a guy siphoning millions of dollars. Caught a guy siphoning off millions of dollars, and he was threatening me to go outside with him in front of a whole office full of gals. A whole office full of gals. I've probably told this story before, and I could not get a manager out of a meeting. Period. I could not get a manager out of a meeting to come deal with this, and obviously I couldn't go outside to go to my car because that's where he wanted to go, and we were in a satellite building that there was nowhere to go, and he was threatening to beat my ass. And then when I finally got the managers back, all the gals took his side and said it didn't happen. There was at least two, I think three gals, and they were all so conflict averse. They all took his side and said it didn't happen. And that, my friends, is why you need to record shit. But like in the heat of the moment, when things are popping off, and you think someone's about to beat your ass, you don't sit there and hold the phone. That's for damn sure. So I mean, that's the difference between how guys and gals handle thing. Whereas gals will go behind your back and stab you in the back. Whereas like what I call the ice queen, the queenie beanie, she'll just take you to a room and say, "Listen, bitch, I'm in charge." Uh-oh. Yes, ma'am. I'm sorry. Let's do what you wanted to do. Or she'll say, "Tell me where I'm wrong so I don't look stupid in front of everybody." You know what I mean? Like, there's just so many gals that are smart. But I think what happens is they get ganged up on by the stupid gals. And yeah. Well, I really wish that I understood what was going on with my microphones. My El Cheapo microphones might not be lasting very long. The first one died in like a half an hour. It was blinking green on and off, and now this one just started blinking green and red. I don't remember what that means. I don't remember what any of this means. The poorly written manual for all this didn't accurately say what any of this, what any of the bleeps or bloops mean. And the one on Amazon wasn't right either. That was on the webpage. So, I'm going to pause this here so I don't have to try to stutter and sputter and try to figure out where I left off again, like I did in the middle of my last rant. And then we'll see if maybe the other microphone doesn't be stupid. So BRB. So I also don't know how the charging pod thing works. So I suspect that the charging pod thing doesn't work very well and isn't charging. So, how do I? What's the next topic? Um, I think there's a lot of memes where like universally everybody coming out for K-Bone is suspiciously having pictures taken with P Diddy over the years. Um, I guess I just want to remind everybody that all these people all know each other. I don't think that in and of itself is weird. Um, Whether or not they had a picture of him may or may not mean that they were at one of his parties. Although I think a lot of them were. Same thing with the island. Can't remember if it was my brother or who said it best, but like you basically have to avoid all of Hollywood if you don't want to have anything to do with the woke mind virus. He said that probably 8 years ago, but it's true now. Like, if you're watching pretty much any mainstream movie that's Hollywood, like you're inadvertently a part of it. Um, so I don't know. There's a couple actors out there that aren't a part of it, but they all quit Hollywood and they do independent stuff now. They're out there if you want to look for them. But I think the fact that they're all endorsing K Bone, God, it's just like it's not a good look. And I also kind of back to what I was saying earlier. I don't know how many people anymore necessarily vote on which if they were waiting for their celebrity, they'd be like, oh, you know, Mario and Zelda and Sonic just finally told us who they were going to be voting for. Oh, Sonic is voting for Orange Man, but Tails is voting like. I mean, yeah, celebrities are like, you know, um, our version of royalty. But I really don't know how many people were waiting for J Lo to figure out which side J Lo is voting for. Um, but I guess I should. I not. I guess I do want to go back and I want to see like what J Lo says. I want to go back and I guess see what Beyonce says. I'm just a little bit curious as to what they've all been told to say. I know there's far less, actors and uh, I don't know influencers that are coming out for conservative, but I think it's because they're all scared that they're going to be canceled. And there's a few that are being brave enough. I think I'm looking for something before I forget again, but I think it's probably already too late. Um, the the shit that's trending on Twitter is disgusting and insane, and I don't know how many more people want that to keep going. I I feel like the Venn diagram, the concentric circles of people who care, and I think you can like look at a lot of like the view counts of like the left leaning events versus conservative leaning and even centrist. Like Joe Rogan's not a conservative, he's kind of like middle of the road, sort of like Tim the Beanie Pool. Like, how many people really watch Saturday Night Live? Like, is there even a way? Like, they've got 3.3 million followers, which what is this? God, what is this shit? How can people watch Saturday Night Live? I'm trying to find like one of their like conservative or not conservative. They're political. Okay, so they've got what's her? Oh, they actually got Kamala Harris to talk to the other Kamala Harris, their actress. That one might have that one has almost 800,000 views. So um, I wonder if that's like an outlier. I'm trying to find another political. What the fuck, man? Some of the shit that they retweet is insane. Trying to scroll down and find another political ad or another one of their political videos that's doesn't have anyone other than their own actors or actresses in it. Jeez Louise. Most of their stuff has like almost no views though. Gross. Anyway, it's probably not fun for you to listen to me scroll through their Twitter timeline. I think it's interesting that their one where Kamala talks to Kamala. I just would assume that that's going to get massive views because that's got both of them on it. I don't think that's normal. I don't think that's normal for a Saturday Night Live. Let me check. Let me check YouTube. There's a point to all of this, I swear. Saturday Night Live. Whoops. Oh yeah. They pulled out. Yeah, okay. So she actually, K-Bone was on there, but I'm trying to show me the. I'm trying to figure out how many views. I'm trying to figure out how many views like Saturday Night Live like gets on a normal day. It's not a lot. It's not a lot. But K-Bone being on there would be a big hit. So I think like the question is like, who's watching that? Like, are the K-Bone supporters watching that? So like, is there like a million K-Bone supporters, or are they all just there for the spectacle? Are the same million people that watched on Twitter the same people on YouTube? I don't know. I still think that those are in a country of 340, 50 million now, if you count all the illegals. Uh, a million people is not a lot. Um, see if I can find how many people on Twitter watched Joe Rogan's podcast with Trump, even if I can even find it. Because they finally it's finally the top search. They so Twitter, you couldn't even search for it the other day. So it's up to 43 million. So see how many it is on Twitter. Joe Rogan Trump. See if the video. I do media. What makes that pop up? Here we go. 3.3 million. Oh, don't get me censored. Blah, 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 blah. So yeah, 3.3 million on Twitter and another 43 million on YouTube. So let's see. I'm trying to find like what the top K-Bone speech is. VP K-Bone at NC rally with special guests. That had 152K views. It's nothing. Atlantic Civic Center, 58K views. That's nothing. Cardi B speech, 114K. Okay. So if it's Cardi B, I don't know who that is. It's someone popular. Then that's high. That's got high views. But these live streams, 5.9K, 137, 27K. These are the top searches for Kamala's speech. They've got almost no views, except for the one with Cardi B. This is pathetic. Oh man, I want to see the JLo one. She goes. I don't know. I don't want to say anything. There's just none of these have any views. So like, I don't. Okay, fine. How much does Joe Rogan and JD Vance? How much? I'll see how much that one's at now. If it'll pop up, 12 million. Damn. So it's less than half of T-Man's, but it's only 2 days, so that could still pick up speed. It's interesting. Like, I don't see people coming out and supporting her. I really don't. I think the first night, it is going to be stinking obvious. I think the lefty loos are going to already be staged, and that's going to be that. And I think more so what's going to get people to come out and vote is like what happened to the poor squirrel in New York that got put to sleep because the powers that be in New York didn't want you to be able to have a pet squirrel. Rest in peace. Little squirrel. I think that's the kind of shit that like wakes up more voters, not what Harrison Ford has to say. Like, people care about Peanut the squirrel. Like, people will get out to vote over Peanut the squirrel. They don't care if K-Bone being on Saturday Night Live. It's she's already. I get my point. What I'm trying to say, she's already talking to her own base. SNL is already left, and they've been left for ages. It's gonna get decent views, but like, there's no conservatives watching SNL that are gonna see it and be like, "Oh, I changed my mind. This cackling maniac won me over because she was on SNL, which is really conservative." No, like, if she wanted to win, she would have to be able to make coherent, concise sentences, which she can't, and she would have to sway independent voters. That's what I've been trying to say. She has to sway independent voters, and she won't go on any of them. The closest she went to was controlled opposition Fox News, and she did not do well at all, and her handlers allegedly made them wrap it up. She couldn't even handle that one. And the guy Bear, I haven't seen the whole thing because I can only handle so much of her cackling. It's a little bit PTSD for me. I don't get paid enough to listen to that for more than a couple minutes. So she needed to talk to Tim Pool. She needed to talk to Joe Rogan. She needed to try to find. I can't think of all their names right now because I hardly listen to anything anymore that's not trying to tell me about civil unrest that's going to happen. She needed to talk to more center leaning outlets, and she didn't do it because she can't. And that's exactly what everyone's going to see. They're going to see another low IQ, fake it till you fake it, and fake it, fake it, fake it. That's doing the whole word salad fake thing. And she's not going to get quote unquote judged on her merits because there are no merits. I don't. If I get, I guess we'll see in a couple days. I think it's going to be. I think if anything, what the last 4 years have woken people up to is to the watch the election centers, watch the ballot boxes. Um, I've already seen a lot of very very compelling videos where ballot places were getting shut down like after lunch for like the whole rest of the day, and I think that people are doing a really good job raising awareness. I think both sides should feel completely safe to vote, and I think the votes are sacred and should be kept safe no matter whose votes they're for. And you should be able to go vote without being intimidated, and your vote should be kept safe and counted properly. And I think if everyone as a country just accepted and agreed to that, which I think most people do, you wouldn't find ballot boxes and ditches and ballots and ditches and ballot boxes on fire and ballots thrown in the garbage and all these other just like. But what my point is, like, I think everyone's doing a really good job going like, hey, oh crap, we found some ballots. Call the law, call the boys in blue. We found some ballots. You know, I believe that both sides want a fair election. I think deep down the left wants Orange Man to win. Yeah, I really do. I'm I'm gonna be floored if it is not a ludicrous landslide before closing on Tuesday night. I'm going to be shocked and I'll be like, well, okay, I guess everyone wants cackles because I don't think they can like fraudulently sway the election I don't think there's any way that the election could be fraudulently messed with enough on the first night. I'm definitely not staying up late. I'm going to be shutting it off at 10 because I think if something fraudulent was going to happen, it's going to happen around 10 o'clock because that's what happened last time 4 years ago. Everyone saw it. So um, I'm sure you're all sick of hearing about election stuff. I'm sick of hearing about election stuff. Um, I, I, I don't think anybody on the left, besides a very, 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 very small portion of people that are on heavy amounts of copium, want her to be moving forward on this. And to be 100% honest, I did not think that they were even going to let her. And I've heard plenty of people say now, like, there was enough time to have a real primary. They could have had a real primary. And I really think that everybody on the left is getting tired of getting screwed by their own side and having crap for credit and not being able to buy houses and not being able to buy groceries and not being able to afford gas and interest rates being too high and the rampant crime. Like, I think they are feeding their own side a line of bull, and I think they are all going to vote conservative. Maybe not always necessarily on the local stuff, but I think you could see even a couple of local upsets. Um, I'm hoping, and even if K Bone wins, I'm still hoping for some local stuff to turn around. Um, I would really like to see the Second Amendment come back. I would really like to see the towns safe again. I'd like to see the cities safe again. I would like to see the freeways safe again. You know, that's I think everybody does, and I've said this before. I've been saying this for the last couple of weeks. I think right now there are still tens of millions of people that are sitting around their tables, sitting around their dining room tables, looking at their bills, going, can we really handle 4 more years of this? Everybody knows she has no plan. Everybody knows she's in way over her head and doesn't know what she's doing. The only difference is, unlike corpo culture, where you can't vote your manager out that doesn't know what they're doing is in way over their head and cackles when you ask him a tough question. I've worked for tons of gals and one guy like that. Unlike them, like, people can just tell her no. They can just tell her no. And I'm gonna be very surprised if an overwhelming amount of people in the country decide that running it into the ground, fully running it into the ground, is the way to go. Um, and I still, I've heard this from a lot of people too that think that Sleepy Joe is really upset and has been trying to slowly torpedo his own side. And I still think just what would be absolutely crazy is if Sleepy Joe came out, just fully came out for Orange Man. And it's just like, you guys don't want her in office. You do not want Cackles in office. Come on, man. You don't want her in office, man. You don't know what it was like. You don't know what it was like working with her, man. Come on. And then Jill, dressed up in a panda bear costume, whops him on the head and says, "Knock it off. You're gonna get us in trouble." Or maybe Hunter comes out for Orange Man. Yeah, I don't know. But what I do know is that Peanut is gone, and I think I think that there's going to be some really really upset people. But I still think though that, like, most left leaning people are going to be like sighing a massive sigh of relief that Orange Man wins. Um, and I don't put it past them to vote for K Bone and hope he wins. Like, I think that they will all secretly vote for him, and then they'll all tell each other, "Yeah, I voted for K Bone," um, because that's literally the thing that they put out, the little ad that they put out. Lie to your husbands and say that you voted for Orange Man when you really voted for K Bone. And so I fully expect them to do that to each other because that's how their minds work. I mean, there's a lot of people that said like conservatives are in the closet over this, but I think really what that means is like conservatives are too scared to actually come out of the closet and say they're conservative. Well, I think that there's a lot of lefty loos that are scared, traditional leftists that are scared to say like, okay, we're officially conservative, and I think that this isn't like copium. This isn't like with the first Obama presidency or the second Obama presidency, where neither of those, that McCain and I don't even freaking remember. All I remember is Sarah Palin, because I was voting for Sarah Palin anyway. Nobody had a chance against Obama. Like, so this isn't copium. Like, there's no way for K-Bone to win this. You have to you have to be a human being. You have to have some level of humanity. And I think that was Hill Dog's problem. You know, Billy Bob Clinton, man, he could talk to people. He could talk right to your soul. Uh, you know, Obama, he could really talk to people. He felt like he was talking right to you. Um, I think Al Gore had that quality. I think the Bushes and Reagan, I think they all had that quality. And I think Orange Man has that quality. I think Sleepy Joe had that quality before. Obviously, he deteriorated. So like, this isn't copium. Like, I don't see it. I don't see how this isn't like an overwhelming, humiliating defeat for them. Tim Kaine, like that guy was a clown. Just so many of them were clowns. I was like, you don't actually have to talk to normal people as a normal part of your job, do you? Because you're a chucklehead. Um, I don't know. And so again, what I think is going to happen is the far left is going to go apeshit no matter what. They've been protesting uh, the liberal ideology for being pro-Israel and pro-war and anti-Iran for a year now. They're going to protest no matter what. And they really hate Orange Man. So you got to look out for that. Just stay out of the cities. Stay out of the cities for, you know, adopt a policy of wait and see on Monday, and then stay out of the cities on Tuesday and Wednesday, and watch the freaking news in your city for civil unrest. Reach out to your friends, reach out to your family, and get those plans. Get those plans in place to get your friends and family out so you don't have to try to go in. No matter what happens, remember at the other end of this, we all still have to be able to get along. So take care of yourselves and take care of each other, and just check on everybody, make sure everybody's okay. And if you haven't voted yet, take some people to go vote with you, and just take it easy, I guess. And if you listen to this whole thing, thank you and appreciate it. And I haven't been doing housekeeping, house cleaning stuff, but I am working on a very special video. Um, it's it's an AI thing, and it's kind of a throwback to the type of videos I used to do ages ago. And I hope you'll like it, and I hope it's out soon. But I want to put like the proper amount of time on it, so we'll see. We'll see. Okay. Um, and I'll talk to y'all later, and appreciate y'all. And if you actually listen through this whole thing, then thanks. It helps me to talk through this stuff, and I'm sure it helps other people to listen through it. So I'll talk to y'all later. Take care out there. Come on.
All right. Part two of this thing, I guess maybe technically part four, depending on how you look at it. I was debating uploading this at all, and then the more kind of stuff I watched and the more other people's commentary I watched, it made me think that like maybe this would all fit somewhere. So a lot of times, like I'll be in the middle of a thought, and I can only get like part of the thought out before the other part of the thought is gone. And what I wanted to say in my last segment is that I think a lot of the talking about like CEOs or just executive level corpo queens, I think that they can be very stoic and have a lot of leadership qualities. Excuse me. But I think underneath all that is a lot of pain and turmoil in their own life, and some of them maybe even are abused by their husbands, um, or spouses, whoever. Their family may treat them like absolute garbage. And the same thing actually, now that I'm thinking about it, has definitely happened to men, where they come to work and they're a manager all day, and then they come home and just get like shit on. There's this perception that like somebody puts a suit on and they have it all together. And sometimes they do and sometimes they don't. Usually they don't. You realize that them being a manager or an executive and a CEO is not an identity or a personality. It's another suit that they put on. They're really just a normal person with like real insecurities. It's just a matter of how comfy they are in the both figurative and literal suit that they wear, the mask that they put on, right? Like, this isn't how I act at work. This is a fictional personality, archetype kind of a thing. This isn't the real me. Um, and I think when you, yeah, excuse me, I think when you're dealing with, any manager or executive level, be they male or female or other, that is not them either. That's why I've had a hard time ever really wanting to be a manager. Like, you have to really be something that like you're not. Um, Most people should not be managers that are, and most people, that aren't managers could could be a good manager someday. The unfortunate thing is like you have to shut a lot of yourself off and start making really cold decisions. And if you're a gal, you have to start definitely being more naturally assertive than you otherwise would have been. Whereas guys are more naturally assertive. And for gals, that comes off as bitchy sometimes, or cold, kind of like ice queen. But really, that's the suit that they've put on and how they try to portray their managerness. But I personally know, like, behind that icy cold veneer, when they put on their corpo suit and their shoulder pads and have their sub-dom relationship for 8 to 10 hours a day with all their employees, for better or worse, with no safe words. Um, that's a suit that they're putting on and off to try to exude confidence and control. And I, I believe, it's good to be nice and supportive, because you don't know what they're going through. You don't know what they're hiding behind that sheen of corpo gal. Um, and you just get behind them and support them. And I'll say 9 times out of 10, everything ends up fine. And you'll just have like an unspoken work relationship with them, that like you're there to support them, and they don't stab you in the back, and you don't talk shit about them. And I'll say 99.9% of the time, everything ends up fine. Um, Unfortunately, because of corpo culture, and guys really don't like gals in the space, especially if the guy is really insecure. Um, and they'll gun for the gal and get her out, unfortunately, which is really sad. Um, Sometimes they move up, but it's rare. I feel like they have to work 10 times as hard as a as an insecure gal that just blathers her way through everything. For some reason, I think they fail upward momentum more often because they are so easily controlled because their insecurity, they don't have the same layers. Their insecurity is really out there. You can tell they're just massively insecure because they're reviewing your PowerPoint based on some grammar and spelling that they're not even right about. They don't even understand the content that they're looking at, and so it just exudes just massive amounts of insecurity. You try to help steer them in the right direction, and they don't want to go. Then they steal your ideas, and unfortunately, those are the gals that seem to fail their way upwards. Now, why does this all matter? Well, I mean, there's another way they get upwards. They hawk to their way up to the top. But I would say that only gets you so far. That opens doors for you. That gets you opportunities. But the gals have a very limited lifespan of being able to hawk to their way around um, the corposphere. They have to be able to establish enough power and leverage when they're at the age where they can hawk to around, um, to be able to get themselves to that next ladder. And that that next grip, if they're climbing up the corpo mountain, is usually going to be like a bunch of leverage on people, or people just want to elevate them because they have so much leverage over them, and you end up with absolute sociopaths rising to the top with no skills because either they've managed to get dirt on somebody or somebody's managed to get dirt on them and they want pawns in place. And if you're wondering where I'm going with all this, it comes full circle to what I was talking about before. I don't think K-Bone has as many women votes as they think they have. For some, and I don't know why, the lefty loos always seem to think that they have the woman vote, but them doing this whole cheeky tee hee hee, we just won't tell our husbands that we're voting blue, tee hee hee hee. They wouldn't do that unless they were really desperate, or again, if they're just trying to sow a bunch of discord, because they've probably already been doing that for a long time, at least in some states, I imagine. Maybe even if they're just being a little bit of a cow to cancel out their husband's vote or whatever they think they're helping. But I apologize if I already said this before. Women are, or maybe this is what the part of that got cut out when my mic cut out earlier. I think it is actually. Women are very budget oriented. They check the bills. They check the receipts. They check your paycheck. They make sure that you're getting paid what you're supposed to be paid. Make sure your taxes are what they're supposed to be. Women do, or organically, naturally, just do all kinds of things. They just do. At least my wonderful wife does. And I can't I cannot believe that they're like, oh, 4 more of this is going to be okay. Somebody who has no plan. Women inherently do not trust each other, A. And B, I think they're also big, bullshit o-meters. They'll lie right to your face. They'll lie right to K-Bone's face. They'll lie right to each other's face. And I was writing it to somebody last night, this whole tee hee hee, let's lie to our husbands and vote blue, in my opinion, is just a big cover. It's like a big CYA for them giving themselves an out to vote conservative. Vote for schools that don't indoctrinate their kids, vote for their kids eventually being able to own their own house if they want. vote for, colleges still being actually worth something someday. Vote for their daughters being able to train and defend themselves with modern tools. Like, women could just be like smiling and nodding to K Bone this whole time and just be stabbing her in the back en masse. Like, I can't. And it's this, it goes back to the whole, like, body autonomy thing, my body, my rights. But they saw during the Rona that their rights got stripped away in a heartbeat. And it was conservatives that were actually trying to protect everybody's bodies. The left doesn't care about the border. Conservatives are trying to secure the border, and they see what migrants are doing to their bodies. So there's only one side that really cares about saving women and saving the future of, and it's just, I think gals, most of them, see through that. They either have a family or they want a family. There's probably a lot of gals right now that are there are a lot of gals now that are voting age that see under the current plan that they will never be able to get a house and they'll never be able to afford a family. Like, gals in their mid to late 20s, they're starting to do the math and they're like, okay, if I save now, if and then with how inflation's going, in 10 years from now, when my biological clock is on its way, uh, I'll have still just as much money as today, and my money will still have the same buying power as today, and we are screwed. Whoa. Uh, I'm positive gals are having that discussion, at least in their own mind, if not in their gal circles. And sure, there's some crazy cat lady boomer gal that wants to vote blue no matter what. But I think she by and large is irrelevant because, she falls into the other circles anyway of she doesn't have she doesn't have like a social network, and she's sitting there on Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security. Maybe she's got widows. What's it called? Widows severance or whatever, something like that. Like, they don't really affect anybody. They live in a bubble, and they don't really influence everybody's vote. Sure, they might talk to everybody at Bridge and try to force everybody to uh, force all the other gals to vote one way or the other. But they could all just be like lying right to her face and be like, "We're not going to tell Henrietta, but we're all voting conservative or whatever." And then one of them might tattle because she's like the secret tattletale lefty Lou mole, and then they all dissolve. This happens a lot with churches too, but I just I don't think this vote is going to go the way they want it to go. I think they counted just way too much on. I almost kind of get the abortion thing now. Why they try to ram it down people's throats. Um, they're probably trying. I think they're scared. I think they're extremely scared. They realize, because I saw like the 2 minutes of SNL, which was actually more about 30. She was on. K Bone was on SNL for approximately like 30 seconds. Most of it was just the audience screaming. And to be clear, SNL is already their vote. So, um, some of the people who watch SNL also watch Rogan, and her being on there for 30 seconds, making a cameo and more rambling, isn't going to win anybody over. But I think that they're worried about losing people. Like, I wouldn't have gotten like over 100 pro-abortion ads in the mail if they weren't afraid of losing people. They want everyone to be so like piss scared to death that they won't. They'll be like, no, he's pro national abortion ban, which is not even a thing. Um, I'm not even gonna look. I'm not gonna turn him on. I'm not gonna listen. But here's the problem. I was trying to figure this out last night. K Bone was on. SNL for a grand total of, she probably spoke for about 15 seconds of the 30 seconds. Um, I didn't see like her doing like a monologue. But I think SNL also doesn't want to get in trouble for election stuff. So um, her being on SNL didn't really get her anything, right? That's the problem. So she's got like a fraction of the views of Orange Man and JD being on Rogan, and Orange Man being on Beanie Man earlier, and just like the massive support from more like centrist, the Rand Paul kind of like, so much of the center is like scooting over to Orange Man, and it's the center that they need to court, which conservatives have been. The liberals, I went on Twitter last night to try to research some of the K-Bone stuff on SNL, and the Twitter comments were full of everyone calling Joe Rogan listeners incels. I'm like, and I was telling them like, you guys need to be courting this centrist group, not calling them incels. Like calling them incels, like you might think that's defending your space, but like you're a dying breed. Like there isn't going to be a young generation of people watching SNL. There's just not. Like SNL will have ran its life, just like In Living Color and Mad TV and so many others have ran their life cycle. Like I guess I bet, and I think deep down they're probably hoping and praying that Orange Man wins so they can have 4 years of content. I think it's the same thing with The Daily Show and Colbert and Trevor Noah and all those other LARPer hacks. Orange Man was like 4 years of free content for them, and all that dried up when Sleepy Joe was around because they weren't allowed to make fun of him until the tail end. So I think they're not trying to court the center at all. They're calling them incels. If you watch Joe Rogan, you're an incel. That's what they said, and that kind of sunk into me a lot. But I think they also said, but that's what they're saying. I think what they're showing though, not only are they not even trying to court the middle, but I think they're trying to like hang on to their own side. I think they're in crisis mode. And one of the most interesting things is there's a really good. I bet I don't. I bet I don't have it saved. There was a really good YouTuber. He's got. Let's see if I. No, I'm not gonna be able to. Maybe I'll hold on. I'll pause it. Oh, Mark Dice is his name, and he has a video. He's got a couple million subs. He's by no means a small YouTuber, but who knows if he's controlled opposition or not. I doubt I doubt it, but sometimes they're not controlled opposition, but they have glowy psyopy. But I don't know anything about this guy. That's my point. It's hard to tell even with like 1 or 2 million subs. That's kind of like right on the edge. But anyway, more I'll talk about that some other time. He's got a video that says CNN turns on Kamala in stunning act of journalism, but why? And basically, what I think those of the Jewish faith realized that the left was running like pro Palestine videos for ads, pro Palestine ads in like what, Michigan or something, and then running pro Israel ads in like more, I guess, more pro Israel areas. I don't know. I wasn't paying that much attention to the exact areas that he was talking about. Yeah. But the point is like Israel is going to vote against her too, which means all of the Hebrew people are going to vote against her, and they all vote as a giant block. And that was kind of his point, is like they all do vote as a giant block. Women traditionally vote as a giant block too. Yeah. And okay, cats also vote as a giant block, is what my cat is telling me. Yeah. Yep. So, if they're hemorrhaging the Israeli vote. Um, Certainly, the minor. I don't know what minority community would be voting for her at this point, due to just the rampant crime and job loss. And so all she really has to count on is, the gal vote. And K-Bone's not doing anything for gals. They can't defend themselves. They don't have their own spaces. Colleges are falling apart. They can't get houses. They can't afford families. They're just like, and if gals spent like the 2 seconds to look into the abortion thing, they would realize that she's not going to do anything that Sleepy Joe, or Orange Man weren't already going to do. So I think on top of that, there was one more interesting like anecdote. I finally got through the JD Vance and Rogan podcast, and they were talking about something interesting. They were talking about like abortion being at the state level, and then would the gal get in charge? I mean, not get in charge, get in trouble, get charged for traveling across state lines for an abortion. And I want to think that there's been scary ads in the past where they've implied that that could be a thing. It's one of those things where I would hope it would be like on the honor system, and that they wouldn't get prosecuted for it. And if you want to go travel to a different state to do the thing for whatever reason, even though I don't agree with it, I don't think that that's what we should be prosecuting people for. And I'll explain why I think that. If you want to travel across state lines because the firearm you really like is in another state and you can legally own firearms, I don't see what the big deal is. If you want to go buy your car in another state because that car doesn't have sales tax, I don't see what the big deal is. Um, I'm sure I had other points too, or like if you just have like a tyrannical state that doesn't want you to get, the size of orange juice that you want to get, or doesn't want you to get the size of soda that you want to get, or maybe your cigarettes are more affordable in a different state, or maybe you're just going to buy a bunch of electronics and the tax codes are different in a different state, or if you want to move your company because the taxes are different in a different state. Like, I basically, you're not criminalizing people going out of state to do something. You're criminalizing them for like wrong wrong think based on your state. And I don't think there's any value there. And it would be the same if assisted unaliving yourself is legal in one state and it's illegal in one state. Like, women's autonomy is like, you have to be able to let them think these things through themselves, but you have to also, in equal share, be able to provide really good support infrastructure for what they really need. And like, I don't it's and mental health is the same way. It's like, if a girl has a kid and she's stuck with it and the guy runs away or gets hit by a car or something, if she has a wide range of options in her mind for how to move forward, and there's more optimal options, then like, that's what should be those things should be available. Like, letting the baby go to the great baby beyond should be, the last resort, and it should be like really rare. And so what do you so how like so arresting them for trying to leave the state doesn't make any sense, because they could go to the other state where maybe there's a whole bunch of better options, not just sending the baby to the baby sky. There could be other great options there. They could be taking the baby there to have it in a hospital that they like better. Like, they could be taking the baby there because that's where they're going to move and stay with family that can help them support it. because they can't afford a house and they can't afford healthcare and they can't afford food and they can't afford anything. Like that whole thought. And so if she comes back and doesn't have the baby, what like would they just like arrest her? How do they know that it's not still in the hospital and she has to go to work? Like I don't, or she's going to pick up some of her stuff so she can move. I don't see like a pragmatic world where like the gal would get arrested and they just assume that she unalived the baby. And even if she did, like there's just so it's just not something to get in the middle of. If she has a boyfriend or husband running around and he's like, "You did what?" I think there's a discussion there to be had, but that's really tricky. And a huge, I don't know if I've said this before, but I don't, or how many of you follow along really close, but my first experience with abortion was my friend telling me um, that his friend and a gal that he really liked had a kid, and he wanted to keep it, and the gal didn't, and she unalived it. She had it unalived without telling him, and it devastated him. And then she just like dumped him and moved on. Like, and I don't know how you can necessarily like vet all of that. It's a big can of worms. You've got to deal with that for the rest of your life. And yeah, the gal would have had to deal with it too. Like it's, and then I think one of the other experiences I heard is the gal. She's like, "Oh, my kid would have been XYZ years old today, but I had it unalived because I didn't want it at the time, and I regret it every day for the rest of my life." And I'm like, "Oh boy, all right, well, I got to go to PE class now." Because I was in school and I was a speaker. Um, like, but at the same time, like I was in high school, and there were high school girls with babies. I think I've brought that up before. Like there was babies everywhere because unplanned pregnancy is just, well, even back then it was just off the chart. Um, it was, yeah. I don't know necessarily like where I'm going with this. It's just that like it's a crazy situation and not one that people should really be eager to jump into. Um, but I think having it state and then worry about people crossing over state lines should really be the least of everybody's concerns with everything that's going on. Like they could just move to the other state, and then what are you gonna do? Like arrest them for moving to the other state? Like that doesn't make any sense. It just doesn't. I just don't see us getting there. And they're not there for they're not there for firearms either. They're not there for taxes either. You can go to another state and not pay taxes if that state doesn't have taxes, or if that state does have taxes, you do have to pay taxes there. Um, if you go move to another state and change your address, your firearms laws are now that state's firearms. Like it's just, I don't know. I just think like in the grand scheme of things, like if anyone was really concerned about abortion that much, which again, the only reason I'm bringing this up is because it is the number one topic on the left hand side, and they send me like hundreds of these anti pro abortion. Anyway, if it's really that big of a deal, then they would be okay with it being states' rights, and chances are the state, if they're a lefty lou, chances are the state that they're in already supports it. Oh, I think like gay marriage was the other thing they brought up. Like gay marriage was at the state level, and then they moved it to the federal level. Uh, all people, when it was at the state level, all people did was just move to the state they wanted to live in, and then they got married. And it was actually the same thing with pot. When pot was legal on the state level, it's still illegal on the federal, still a controlled substance on the federal level. But when it was at the state level, people just went to the state that they wanted and got pot. Like one could argue that abortion is different because there's a human life involved, but there's human lives involved with everything, and we all have to make our own choices. We all have to make our own decisions, and we're all stuck with those. And I think if people want a better world, they have to you have to get things at the state level, And then you have to start making the best state you possibly can with the best infrastructure that you can. And so gals feel okay with hanging on to their baby if they want, and have the best medical care for them, and have the best have the best infrastructure and resources. I mean, elder care is the same way. You know, you can't take care of your sick grandma if you have to worry about your bills and you have to worry about hanging on to your house and stuff. You don't want the state to be taking care of grandma, then absorb all of grandma's resources when grandma doesn't make it. Like, it's tricky to start talking about human life. You know, you claim to cherish human life, and then now what do you do about it? You got to put your money where your mouth is, and it's a challenge. It's a lot of hard decisions, and it's a lot of hard conversations that have to happen. The problem is one side doesn't want to have the conversations, and they want to just show everybody the door and censor everybody. And I swear, and then that whole white guys for gay bone or whatever. That's not gonna. That's so weird and specific, and like you. I mean, it's so obvious that the K bone administration is targeting like the white nuclear family. Like you go back and watch the video when all the gals are winky facing at each other. They were all like white men and hetero, cis normative Caucasian relationships in that voting area, winky facing at each other. Like the whole white dudes for Trump, or no, I mean white dudes for Kamala. Like they know exactly what they're doing. They know exactly who they're going after, and they would only be doing that if they were concerned. Um, they're trying to break the family apart. They're trying to make the white man go after, vote for K Bone. They're trying to make white women stab their white husbands in the back and vote for K Bone. Like I mean, it's in their videos. They're trying to tell Palestinians that they're pro-Palestinian. They're trying to tell Israelis that they're pro-Israeli. Like, I think they would only do this if they were desperate. There's no, there's no message of hope, Obama. Like, there's, they don't have a platform to run on. We're 3 days, 2 days. We're 2 days till the election now, and they still haven't found a platform to run on. And it's starting to really think like it's starting to feel like they're checking boxes now. I watched the J Lo. Oh yeah. I watched the J Lo speech, the 2 minute thing. Well, I promised I wouldn't cry, and you all have to get out and vote and make people uncomfortable and what. Um, so a lot of the J Lo stuff with the whole the Diddy files or whatever. Don't focus too much on those images. A lot of those are CG AI manipulated images. That's not to say like they weren't together for a long time and she probably saw a lot of stuff. They probably have a lot of stuff on her, but they probably have a lot of stuff on everybody because you don't get that high without people having a lot of stuff on you. My point earlier about YouTubers, like you can't get past a certain level. Well, 99.999% of people don't get past a certain level without them having dirt on you in both the Hollywood and they just don't allow influencers to gain a certain level of influence without having control that they can assert over them and blackmail them. But anyway, I don't know how many millions of subs that is, but they can also stifle their algorithms and other things. But anyway, you can't stifle J Lo. But obviously she's controlled by them. But I listened to her 2 minute speech and it's just like it was the same drivel. Make them feel uncomfortable. Get out there and vote. Bring other people out to vote. Like they don't. They have threat to democracy. Orange man is a threat to democracy. It's like, okay, he's gonna throw us all in the gulag. Well, nobody believes that anymore because he didn't do it last time. He's gained. The more they attack him, back to the whole African American community, like they see him as one of their own with how much he's been demonized and targeted. And the Hispanic community, sees all their effort being thrown away to come here legally by people who come here illegally, throw the census way out of whack, and then drive wages down. They sit there and they come here illegally, they get work permits, or they get paid under the table, and they drive wages like through the floor, which just makes the whole inflation situation even more weird. Um, I want people to do a good job, and I want to pay them good money, but I want to have good money to be able to pay them good money, so we can make the world go around somehow. And I think in 2 days, like there's some states that they're gonna lose by a lot because they don't have a platform. They should have primaried K Bone out. Wasn't she like the least liked of all the presidential candidates or something when they were all running against each other way back when? I remember saying this like ages ago. Like they can't put they could not find a candidate that was ready to go on the left that everybody liked. And what Tim Walls, is that his name? The dude for the VP, and K Bone said she was like sleep deprived that day or something. I don't know if they thought that like he was gonna bring white dudes out, and yeah, he was gonna be the hunter, but he doesn't know how to run a shotgun. He was gonna be the car guy, but he's like holding up an air filter and puts it back in. Like he would have been better off not doing all that stuff because all guys do is just rip on other guys for like being retards, like are pretending to know what they're doing. Because guys love to one up each other with like that's not how you do it, and then it turns into a giant measuring contest, and it's funny. It's funny. All that none of that helped him. All of that hurt him because all of that was to not court their own side. All of that was to try to gain the other side. They didn't gain the other side, and I think they've been losing their own side of the process. I think they're going to lose by just a massive number. And I hope also that all of the other centrists realize that the Green Party and the fake Libertarian Party to just like not waste your votes and vote your conscience and vote a third party. Oh gosh, like it'd be different if libertarians put a real libertarian forward, but they never will. They're softcore commies. Um, anyway, I think I'm gonna end this one for real this time, and I think this is gonna be my last one for several days. So I'm just gonna get prepped for the election turmoil. Um, follow Vision Preparedness. Follow Survival Living. Follow Marfugel. He said he's gonna be checking in on the civil unrest up in Seattle as it occurs. Find your local boots on the ground in your cities that upload to YouTube or Twitter or something, because that's going to be your eyes and ears the next couple of days for the turmoil sea that's going on in your cities. So Hudson Valley, follow Hudson Valley Prepping. Just follow YouTubers that are actually like covering what's going on and have a good community wrapped around them. That's what originally drew me to Marfugel News, Survival Living, Hudson Valley, Vision Preparedness, is that they have really good communities that orbit around them, and they love to share info. And I cannot emphasize enough during 2020 how like boots on the ground sharing info. And sure, some of it's fake and some of it's disinfo, and some of it's psyops and some of it's deep fake. But like, hey, there's a roadblock here, there's a roadblock there. That store's just got looted, so don't bother. Like, just don't trust people to where like they want to come to your house and you don't know who they are. But just yeah, find those locals that are posting. And Twitter is the best for this. Twitter, you can easily find who's like posting the boots on the ground stuff in your city, and it could be super far left leaning. I remember, was it Unicorn? Unicorn Riot. Super far left leaning organization, but through their videos, you could still figure out what was going on because the video doesn't, the video is the video. And sure, they could try to slant it or whatever, but when it's live footage, you can start to figure out what's going on. Anyway, y'all take care now. And it looks like it's going to be a nice, bright, sunshiny, but maybe windy day here at least. Y'all just take it easy. And if someone listens to this whole thing, then great. If not, at least I tried. So y'all take care. Bye-bye.